Helm orders. In the Navy, steering relies on the principle of closed-loop communication. Closed-loop communication ensures that orders are given and understood properly. First, a helm order is given to the helmsman by the officer of the watch. For example, he will say port 15 or midships. Note that rudder angles are not spelled out. The officer of the watch would say 15, not 15. This is so not to confuse a heading and a rudder angle. Then the helmsman would repeat the order as heard. Often he will add aye aye. For example, port 15 or port 15 aye aye. In the third step, when the order is carried out, the helmsman would signal this to the officer of the watch by repeating the order with a small but important change. He will say, wheel is 15 degrees to port. Rudder is amidships. You can also say 15 degrees of port wheel on. This is acknowledged by the officer of the watch to indicate that he knows that the order has been carried out. He will say, very good in the Royal Navy, or very well in the US Navy, or aye aye if he's enlisted and not an officer. Let's look at an example. First, the officer of the watch would give his order. He would say, port 15, altering 130. This means put 15 degrees of port wheel on and come to a heading of 130. The helmsman would respond, port 15, altering 130. This indicates he has heard. Then the helmsman would watch his rudder angle indicator. When the rudder would reach 15 degrees to port, he would announce it by saying 15 degrees of port wheel on, or rudder is 15 degrees to port, which the officer of the watch would acknowledge by saying very good. Then the helmsman would signal the passing headings for the officer of the watch. He would say passing 160, passing 150. At this point, the officer of the watch might decide to reduce the amount of rudder. To do that, he would say ease to 5, which the helmsman would immediately repeat. Ease to 5, aye aye. When his rudder would reach the 5 degrees, he would announce it to the officer of the watch. 5 degrees of port wheel on, passing 140. Very good, midships, the officer of the watch would say. This means put the wheel at the neutral position. The helmsman would acknowledge this by saying midships, aye aye. And when the rudder would return to the neutral position, he would announce it to the officer of the watch, saying, the wheel's amidships, or rudder is amidships. At that point, the officer of the watch will indicate the heading to steady the ship on by saying, steer 130. The helmsman would repeat the order, steer 130, aye aye, and signal when the ship would be steadied on the designated course, steering 130. Finally, the officer of the watch would acknowledge that by saying, very good.